This is Rick Rule for Rule Investment Media and the Rule Classroom, sponsors of the 2025 Natural Resources Investment Symposium, July 7 through 11 in Boca Raton, Florida, or via live stream from the comfort and convenience of your own home. Irrespective of how you choose to attend, live or live stream, a few things you need to know about the conference. The first is that we will be presenting over 50 hours of dense but valuable programming, more than you can absorb in the 4 days of the conference. To that end, we're recording the entire proceeding, and those recordings will be available to you for a year, and you're going to need them. The material's very valuable, but it's very dense. Further to that, we interview every single exhibitor and every single speaker at the conference before the conference, so that you can arrive at the conference prepared to allocate your time and, more importantly, your financial resources efficiently at the conference. I urge you to listen to all of the pre-conference recordings so that you can maximize the benefit that you get from the conference. A couple of other things. The first is that unlike any other investment conference on the planet, every public company exhibitor is owned in accounts owned and managed by myself. While sadly my ownership is no guarantee that a stock goes up, it is a guarantee that unlike any other investment conference in the world, every exhibitor here has been vetted by the conference personnel. That allows me to make you an offer that is unheard of in the conference business. If you attend live or live stream and think for any reason that you didn't get your money's worth, I will refund your money. The financial risk of your attendance at the conference is all mine, all mine. Now, I've had to refund about 0.1% of the tuitions charged over the last 30 years, for my conferences. That notwithstanding, the guarantee is in place. So let's begin. Today's interview is with a friend of longstanding, Tim Coughlin, with whom I've been investing and corresponding for almost 2 decades. In Tim's current incarnation, there is an exploration company, a prospect generator probably, called Royal Roads Resources, which we're going to go into in some detail. Tim, first of all, thank you for your efforts on behalf of mineral exploration investors for a very long time. Thank you, too, for your sponsorship and support of the Natural Resources Investment Symposium. It's a pleasure to visit with you today.
It's great to see you again, Rick, and thank you for your continued interest and support. It's much appreciated.
Tell me something about Tim Coughlin. Tell me how you came to this position and why people should care about your answers to the nosy questions that will follow.
I can't encourage anyone to care that much. That would be vain, but my background is geology. It's a sort of a pious science background that started with a BSc, moved on to an MSc in exploration and mining, then ultimately onto a PhD, which was probably the most interesting, I suppose, 5 years of my life, researching in the Andes, looking at the controls on some of the major copper and gold deposits there related to the actual uplift of the mountain range. So that was a lot of fun. And then I spent a lot of my career. I went back to do my PhD after working for a company called Mount Isa Mines, which some of your elderly listeners will recall. It was subsequently subsumed by Xstrata. And then since then, following a sort of a period of time straddling research and industry, running a consultancy out of the University of Queensland in Australia, I went to work with Anglo Gold for a while in South America, my PhD, I should say. So where I started all this was in South America, in Argentina, and spent quite a bit of time either in-house with Anglo, in-house with some of the other larger enterprises, or consulting to them. And then eventually, I sort of had an itchy boot, I guess, and wanted to give the junior market a try. And that was 2005, around about then, 2005, and really haven't looked back since then. Again, as I said, a pious approach, a focus on exploration, which we think is what we do best. We've got a couple of discoveries to our name, I suppose. Probably the most well-known one for various reasons would be Amulsar in Armenia, and that's a discovery that's difficult to post-rationalize because it required quite a bit of serendipity. It was essentially one. Well, there's a wonderful term which is increasing your exposure to serendipity, which I quite like, and that essentially means as long as you're in the field, you've got a better chance of finding ore deposits. And in that case, we were driving down a road in Armenia, heading off towards the border with Iran, drove past what's becoming a 5 million ounce open pit gold deposit. And since then, that was with a company called Lydian. We then started, once they started building that mine or proposing to build it, we then headed out into the enterprise that I'm currently running, Royal Road, which is focused currently on Saudi Arabia, three countries, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, and Colombia. Our ultimate aim is to have a single world-class project, copper gold project in multiple jurisdictions, starting with those three.
You've already enjoyed some success in Royal Roads. You made a discovery which you monetized. Tell us something about your reasons for being in the jurisdictions that you're in. Tell us something about the juxtaposition between political risk and technical risk. You seem to have a fondness for jurisdictions that other people don't venture into.
Yes, I'm not sure that strategy served as well over the years. It's certainly it's certainly not without its risks. What we saw, I suppose, at the end of 2022, we made a bit of a strategic change to our plan, which was essentially focused prior to that on, as you quite rightly say, on targeting post-conflict environments. Now, there was a reason for that, and the reason for that was we considered ourselves to have a bit of an edge. There was momentum behind us initially with that plan that was imposed by two multilaterals, so the World Bank through the International Finance Corporation and the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, who thought that exploration, discovering resources in post-conflict environments, that were conflict sensitized and often quite complicated in terms of centralized governance and high-level corruption, that would empower rural communities and in so doing, augment the possibility of a prospective future for the entire country. Unfortunately, there is still a good argument for that, and I can think of, I'm sure we all can. We could think of some environments that are currently emerging that are highly prospective and would certainly benefit from a model like that. But it's a long-term, it's cathedral building, so it's a long-term process that, unfortunately, I mean this, unfortunately, the market's not there to support. So I guess we diluted that, we watered that down a little bit at the end of 2022, and decided to go back to leaning onto our technical capacity and focus on prospective environments that were supportive. We sort of bounded into Saudi Arabia, point when they were just starting to really market their Vision 2030 approach and this integrated combined approach to supporting mining, which is really quite authentic. I don't quite. When you're over there and you look back at what we've, the rest of us, it really looks like, the rest of our industry. And I'm saying this because it's quite a stark contrast. So looking back over the Rubicon, like the rest of our industry is almost remedial and at worst, a little bit dystopian. Whereas, in Saudi, there's authentic, objective support for exploration and mining. It is authentically underexplored. And I think I'm not saying anything that I think is going to require any sort of subjective anecdotal support. I think most people can understand that even from a distance. And so we're very excited about that one. When I say diluting our previous approach, we're still very much first movers of this next wave in Saudi Arabia. There's been quite a bit of exploration in the past, but it was late 70s, early 80s. So we're quite excited by what we're doing there. Morocco is kind of the same, different in many ways, but sort of similar, but not quite at the scale of Saudi Arabia. And we are still the largest license holder in Colombia, and that seems to be emerging again. I think it's something that people need to watch. Despite itself, Colombia is, for whatever reason, starting to look like it might be, a place to revisit. So we're dusting off. We still own all of those properties. We're dusting them off a little bit, and we'll be considering, what we're going to be doing there either later this year or early next year.
It's interesting that all three of your jurisdictions will be reasonably prominent at the conference, I suspect because of the geological prospectivity of each, and the fact that my own belief is that the political risk around all three relative to their prospectivity has been mispriced. I'm particularly interested in your efforts in Saudi because the Nubian Shield on the other side of the Red Sea has treated me so well. Sentamen and the Bisha deposit, the Nubian Shield. Oh, I forgot Rick Clark's wonderful discovery in Sudan. The fact is I'm sort of 3 for 5 there, which in exploration speculation is pretty good. Talk to me a little bit about the Nubian Shield and talk to me a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish in Saudi Arabia, what you've accomplished so far.
Okay, so we're on the Arabian side of this, Arabian-Nubian Shield. So on the other side of the Red Sea, those two shields split up when the Red Sea opened in the early tertiary, so 30, 40 million years ago. What we're looking for there, and so if I try and distill this very quickly, it's slightly different, which is odd from the Nubian Shield, but what you have there essentially is a very early crustal extension event, so big delamination event related to the breakup of the Rodinia supercontinent, and then the floating around and collision of various island arcs. So so Japan-style back arc type systems, and then eventually the formation of a continental arc at around about 600 million years or so ago, formation of a continental arc, and then the whole system shutting down just before the Cambrian, and then the accumulation of all of the sequences that Saudi Arabia is most well known for, which host its massive petroleum resources. So what we're looking for, if you think about that, there's actually three different styles of mineralization. There's the early Rodinia extension stuff, which we find really exciting, and they tend to be skarns associated with granites. Then you've got the VMS style and related deposits that then follow while all those island arcs are floating around. And then you have an Andean arc, sort of similar to an Andean arc, for about 30 or 40 million years before continent-continent collision. So what we're seeing are a lot of skarns, actually. We're seeing some VMSs. At the moment, our focus is on skarns. Oddly enough, and excitingly, from I think all of our perspectives as sort of technical guys, particularly the very early stuff, so the stuff that's related to the sort of 800, 900 million year breakup of Rodinia, we're finding some very interesting copper gold skarns related to that event. And in fact, what we're doing right now, and to simplify this even more, what we're doing right now is we're drilling some zinc skarns that were first drilled by Rio Phoenix. So that's Rio Tinto's subsidiary of many years ago in the late 1970s. but never tested for gold. And so what we've done is we've found gold on the surface related to those zinc skarns, and now we're drilling to ensure or check that they continue at depth.
Tim, to the extent that our attendees are interested in this style of exploration, as you know, I'm fascinated as opposed to interested by it, and want to know more about Royal Roads, about Colombia, about Morocco, about Saudi Arabia, who specifically at Royal Roads do they contact, and how exactly do they contact that person?
Well, the short answer is me. And I'm most pleased, very pleased, and worried when I don't get inquiries from investors or shareholders. They can do that initially, but via info at or directly to my email, which is tim.coughlin at royalroadminerals.com. And then I generally, that's the first point of contact, and then we generally exchange WhatsApp or Signal numbers, and they can call me anytime, so long as they don't mind me talking to them from the field or airports or something like that.
Well, Tim, thank you for 20 years of efforts on behalf of exploration speculators, particularly me, and thank you too for your ongoing support of the Natural Resources Investment Symposium. I look forward to hosting you in Boca Raton, July 7 through 11.
Look forward to seeing you there, Rick, and everyone else.